a lot of people know William Wallace from that one movie he played in back in the day. I think it's called Braveheart. But I also saw he's in Rise of the Kingdoms at the moment, and I want to know what is William Wallace about. So we're gonna head over to Scotland and check it out. So after landing, we started driving through Scotland, and honestly, it already has the perfect vibe for a William Wallace story. The hills, the old buildings, the castles, the grey weather. Scotland is just a whole vibe in of itself. And to understand why William Wallace is still remembered all these years later, these hundreds of years later, we need to go back to see why he was so important. So the whole mess kind of starts in 1286, and that's when the Scottish king Alexander III dies. And a few years later, around 1290, the next heir also dies. So that means Scotland has no king, no ruler, nobody in line. And by 1291, King Edward I gets involved to help decide who should become king. And you might think, oh, England is here to help, but England, they decided they want to control Scotland. Now, shortly after King Edward I took over Scotland, or was invading Scotland, William Wallace shows up, and he's not a noble, or he's not a king. There's not that much known about William Wallace as a person himself, but he basically said, yo, England, we're not taking this, man. We're gonna fight back. So now we get to the point that really made William Wallace famous, the Battle of the Stirling Bridge. So he was fighting the English army, of course, and they were way better equipped. They had a heavy armor, they had horses, they had longbows, and William Wallace had, an army of himself. He was rebel leader at that point, but on paper, England would have beaten them so easily. But the location matters here, it's a bridge. So what William Wallace did, he waited for a part of the English army to cross, and then he attacked so he could cut off the bridge from reinforcements, and he only had to fight a small part of the army. And basically, he trapped them all at the river, and they destroyed them. And that basically showed, England could be defeated. And that was a really, really important moment. I think that's really what made him into a national hero. And after he won at the Stirling Bridge, he was officially named Guardian of Scotland. So that basically meant, he is one of the people leading to fight for the country. Now, here we have the Rise of Kingdoms version of William Wallace, and it's actually interesting to know that not many people know what William Wallace looks like. There's not really any historical, picture. No, well, there's no pictures obviously back then, but there's definitely not a portrait. So I think the developers did actually do a great job with portraying him. He looks like a rebel leader, like someone that would fight for his country. So when we fully look at William Wallace in the game, I think the developers did a great job actually making him true to his historical character. He's got the warrior side on him. He's an infantry versatile smite commander. He's not a gatherer or anything. He stands for freedom. I think this is the William Wallace sword, and I'll show a picture of the real thing on screen. And freedom is best. I tell thee true. All things to be won. You can see he is a commander that likes to liberate people, and preferably people of their resources and troops. But besides that, I think the developers did a great thing in making him, and also the skills, they actually make sense. This is Scottish. I'm not gonna try to pronounce it because I'll definitely butcher it. But his first skill is a single target smite damage skill, which does 2400 smite damage, which is beautiful. And it actually makes sense, because if you just look at the Stirling Bridge example already that I showed, he hits precise and he hits hard, He's not gonna be AoE spamming everywhere. He just hits you right where he needs to, and then he wins. So I think this skill actually does make a lot of sense. And same with the other ones, I'm not gonna pronounce that one either. But while this commander troop is on the map, infantry units in their troop gain 10% health, 30% attack, and 20% march speed. This is more like an overall buff that most commanders get. But Lion of the North, he's got the lion crest, and he is the Guardian of Scotland. So this also a good title for him. Oh, he even has it here, Guardian of Scotland. This commander troop takes 10% less normal damage, and whenever this commander troop deals smite damage, dealing more than 1000, he has an 80% chance to increase that damage by 40. Also another, damage boost, because he actually does deal a lot of damage. There's like one skill missing here, just deal more damage against English commanders, but I guess we're not gonna have that one. And then Battle of Stirling Bridge, when attacking a troop on the map, this commander troops deal 10% more smite and 10% more normal damage. Another great, another good skill. Also kind of a basic one, but it's always nice to get these little boosts here. And then you got his passive expertise, which is whenever this commander troop uses an active skill or is slowed, it cleanses all slow effects from up to 3 nearby allied friendly troops, including the commander itself, and then grants him a mighty shield, which I'm looking at like historical things, and I would say this one also does make a bit of sense because he is again a rebel leader and he makes people, he inspires people to fight. So this kind of makes sense that he cleanses slow debuffs because he wants people to move and he inspires people. So I think the developers did a great job. But after Stirling Bridge, the story kind of starts to change. Wallace had proven that he could defeat England. He proved it at Stirling Bridge, and then he became the Guardian of Scotland, as I said. But Edward I, he said, no, we are England, we are almighty. And he came back with a much stronger army this time, and they fought at Falkirk. And the Scots here used a spear formation against the cavalry, because that is one of England's strong points, cavalry and archers. And it was gonna work until Edward used his longbows to break the Scottish formation, break the spear formation. And once that happened, it was basically game over. The cavalry was able to charge in because there were no spear lines anymore. And at that point, Wallace kind of got crushed. And after Falkirk, Wallace stepped down as Guardian of Scotland. But he kept fighting, of course. But this time more as a commander, not really a leader, more as just a soldier at that point. And in 1305 he was betrayed and captured, and then he was taken to London and executed. And at that point became more a martyr. And that's basically how his legend ended. Betrayed and executed, as we see often with these heroes. If you remember the Joan of Arc video, it kind of happened the same thing there. But either way, guys, I hope you liked the video. I hope you learned something. And of course, if you enjoyed it, that's the most important thing. And I'm going to think long about what next commander I should do. I'm planning a trip, of course, towards somewhere. Depends what commander. Maybe Sun Tzu would be cool, visiting China. But we'll see. Leave a comment down below, guys. Let me know what you think.